The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Getting to Know You. My name is Joe Nash. Today, I am wearing my holiday colors because it's time for our annual visit with the Ten Broeck Mansion and all their holiday events. And we have with us the Executive Director, Jillian Altenburg, and, as usual, Sinterklaas. So welcome back, both of you.
Thank you.
Now, before we talk about specific events in the holiday season and a little history of Sinterklaas, how was 2015 at the Ten Broeck Mansion, Jillian?
Oh, amazing, actually. We have done so much this year. I'm exhausted, I'll tell you that much. We've been reinterpreting rooms, repainting the outside. We did our 2 weeks of theater in the gardens, confetti. We just hosted a murder mystery at the mansion for the first time. So it's been crazy.
And do you still have your summer camp there?
Yeah, our kids' archaeology camp.
Right, so
we were able to sponsor, I believe, 6 kids this year.
Okay, so now you're gearing up. So there's no rest for you, is there?
Never.
So you have a lot of events here starting in November, going right up to almost Christmas. We're going to talk about them. Before we do, just a little bit about Sinterklaas. Now, Sinterklaas, you've been here before, and you have a long and storied history. You're mixed up with a lot of people. St. Nicholas, Father Christmas, Santa Claus. You got a jumbled. Your family tree would be hard to, I think, untangle. But for someone who started in Turkey, and I think just lived and died in Turkey, how did you end up as well? Let's just say, how did you end up in the Hudson Valley? We'll start there because I was reading a little bit about you here in my book by Washington Irving, The History of New York. I know it's convoluted, but see, give us.
It is. And it's just the way different stories and myths and whatnot are created. And the historical St. Nicholas was born, as you said, in what is now Turkey, or Asia Minor, in the port town of Patara in 271 or 272 CE or AD, whichever you prefer. And he was a bishop there, bishop of the Eastern Church, a real bishop. And he was bishop of the city of Myra, or Myra, M-Y-R-A. And he died around 342. And he became very famous. He was known for his charity, and that story about his charity, and he supposedly gave away all the wealth, all the family wealth, while he was bishop, and did a lot of good for people. And a lot of people believe this is where the concept of the gift-giving comes from. But his fame spreads.
This is after he died, though.
After he died. And it's the only biography that we have extant was written over 300 years after he died.
Okay.
No original material. A lot of it was cribbed from another biography of someone entirely different. So you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yes.
But he becomes famous throughout the Mediterranean. He becomes the patron saint of Greece, the patron saint of Russia, and the patron saint of Moscow. He becomes the patron saint of sailors. Okay. And the Greek sailor would leave port with the expression, "May St. Nicholas's hand be on the tiller."
Oh, okay.
And Russian sailors would put an icon of St. Nicholas, in their room on shipboard, to protect them, to help them. So he just became terribly famous, spread throughout the Mediterranean.
It sounds like he went across, you're saying France, England, but the most popular place was the Netherlands, right?
That's right, and he eventually hits the Netherlands, and that's where we.
And he kept going across the Atlantic.
And that's where we get Sinterklaas. So Sinterklaas is the Dutch corruption of Saint Nicholas, or Sint Nicholas, and so he not only takes over Holland, he's still popular there today, and so On his feast day eve, which is December 5th, they will have a big dinner in Holland celebrating St. Nicholas. They'll put out wooden shoes with hay for his horse Schimmel, and they will in turn, in the morning, the hay will be gone, and in its place will be candy and nuts and toys for the children. And in many ways, it's bigger than Christmas, even to today. So that's when you get the good stuff, as one European told me. That's when you get the toys and the candy. On Christmas, you might get a pair of socks.
Yeah.
And so St. Nicholas on December 6th is big stuff. Last year, he came into Amsterdam on November 16th by boat from Spain. Don't try to understand it. Just go with the flow.
If you go to the internet, this is still a big day.
Very big. And so, who settled around here way back when? It was the Dutch. So the Dutch brought Nicholas or Sinterklaas to the Hudson Valley, and he morphed in the Hudson Valley. He ran into a lot of other traditions, including English traditions that went along, German traditions where we had the Christmas tree, and he emerged. The first time we see the term Santa Claus was in James Rivington's New York Gazetteer in 1773. That's S-T-A Claus. And so Sinterklaas morphs into Santa Claus.
I think I read somewhere, was that a mistake or a typo or something?
Well, they argue about that today. He was reporting on a meeting of Dutch individuals who were celebrating St. Nicholas. He printed it as ST period, small a, capital C, L-A-U-S. Was he trying to approximate Sinterklaas? Was it a mistake? Or was he really saying Santa Claus? No one knows. By the way, Rivington has come to notoriety because now it's been shown. He was part of the spy ring for George Washington. He was a loyalist printer in New York City, but he was actually a spy for Washington. So he's become famous in his own right for something else.
But if you say that, the S, the Saint A, and it sounds like Santa,
Yes.
Saint Claus.
And that's 1773 is the first we see Santa Claus in print.
So why don't we hold it right there, because we'll get back to your story, because in 1773, we're going to talk to Jillian now. We got a lot of events going on down at the Ten Broeck Mansion. There's a lot of information, tenbroeckmansion.org. It'll be on the screen. You're starting off with a holiday gala on November 19th, and it's not going to be at the mansion. Tell us about that. You're honoring, right next door here to the library, the Times Union's Paul Grandal.
Yeah, we are really excited about this because it's the first time we've held a big gala. So it's going to be at 677 Prime downtown. It'll have a silent auction, 3-course dinner. It's really a chance to kind of come, find out about the mansion, mingle with history enthusiasts and like-minded supporters. And it's gonna be really fun.
Now, for Paul Grandal, is he getting an award or something, or are you just honoring him?
So every year we honor somebody who's been, really important to the mansion, but also really ingrained in Albany history.
Oh, okay.
And so Paul Grandal, we are excited to have him accept our honor.
Yes, he's been to our library many times.
Yeah.
I think he's a really good guy. So
he's been around. For years, he's been writing about Albany history for years.
So then after that, your next event, December 3rd, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., is called First Look, which is a sort of a new event. So why don't you tell us about First Look?
So the whole house will be decorated. We have a different theme every year, and this year is a children's winter wonderland. And so we have about 4 or 5 garden clubs who each come into a room and decorate it to the nines. And so this is kind of, a sneak preview of the house all decorated. It's the first chance you get to come in and see the house and explore and walk around.
And I understand that Sinterklaas will be at this event.
Of course. Of course.
Okay, and then we have an event that you always have every year. It's always a popular one. This is December 5th at 1 p.m. It's December 4th and 5th. It's a Friday and Saturday. The holiday teas. This is always a popular event, is it not?
We sell out every year.
You sell out. Okay.
sell
and then
out.
what goes on at this?
It's just a really lovely tea. We set it all up in the formal dining room. We've got Victorian ladies pouring tea. There are small tables set up throughout all of the historic parlors. And you come and you have a tea. Sinterklaas will be there visiting. He'll be there to welcome everyone in.
And the mansion is beautifully decorated.
Yes,
I mean, it's just, at that time of year, it may be the most beautiful place in
Great
all
magic. What's nice is that since it's a common theme, but different garden clubs, each club has their own take on that theme.
Oh, okay, I see.
And so it all kind of comes together, but each room is just done so.
And you're saying this is so
wonderfully.
popular, it always sells out.
Always sells out.
Now I know, and you're having a lecture on December 9th. You're having a lecture. You're having the author Carlo DeVito, who wrote a book about Charles Dickens and how he created A Christmas Carol and the character of Scrooge. Do you know? He's just going to be talking about the book, or?
Yeah, we've never had him before. We always try to do a lecture during the year.
Okay.
And so we're excited.
So that should
to
be
welcome
good.
him.
He's also that author is from the Hudson Valley, which is where all these things we were talking to Sinterklaas about. Now, Sinterklaas, because you're mixed up with so many things in history, Charles Dickens in some ways is responsible for a lot of Christmas being sort of not reinvented, but coming back. Do you know anything about how Charles Dickens fits in, not just with your story, but Christmas in general?
Actually, I don't. No, 2 lectures ago, someone asked me that very question.
Oh, okay.
And I said, I haven't got up to that. I'm researching other aspects like the dark figures who accompany Sinterklaas or Saint Nicholas, like Krampus and Knecht Ruprecht and Pelznickel.
I did see one picture of Sinterklaas, and they look almost like a little devil almost.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. They're, throughout Europe, there's often a dark figure that accompanies Saint Nicholas during this period.
Okay.
And they have a million different names for him throughout Europe.
Okay.
But it's interesting because the figure is kind of the darkness, and Sinterklaas or Saint Nicholas is the light.
Okay.
And it's interesting. But speaking of authors, and you're right on it, to have that book by Washington Irving,
Yes.
that's where Sinterklaas really took the next big step in the Hudson Valley and in America. That's where he started changing to becoming an American.
Okay,
man.
so all right, a minute ago, before we go back to Jillian, we left off in 1773. Yeah, all right, why don't you continue the story?
That book was originally published on December 6th, 1809, which was St. Nicholas's feast day. And so Irving knew that very well. He was a big fan of St. Nicholas, and he published it at the urging of a guy by the name of John Pintard, who was head of the New York Historical Society, and the man who got New York City's patron to be St. Nicholas, and the Historical Society's patron to be St. Nicholas. So he brought Irving into the Historical Society. They wrote this book, and it's still very readable. It's very funny.
It's kind of wacky.
It's very wacky, and it's Irving's take on kind of an amusing view of the Dutch settlement of New Amsterdam. But throughout it all, there's St. Nicholas, and there's and all the attributes that we attribute to Santa Claus are in that book. There's St. Nicholas puts his finger to his nose and does the wink, the way that Santa Claus did before rising up the chimney. All that's in Irving's book.
And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, this historical society that you're talking about that Washington Irving was a member of, was not Clement Moore a member of that also?
Yes. It was founded in 1804. And Clement Moore, Henry Livingston, and Washington Irving, they spent a lot of time down there in New York City and knew each other. And so this happens in 1809. There's a couple other references to Santa Claus. Actually, in 1808, in Salamagundi, which is a magazine that Irving did. Santa Claus appears with an E, not an A, in it. And then you get a poem in 1822 called The Children's Friend, which mentions Santa Claus. And then we have The Night Before Christmas, which is really called A Visit from St. Nicholas. 1823, The Troy Sentinel, published anonymously. And there, Sinterklaas has been moved from December 6th to the night before Christmas. And he is, although it doesn't say Santa Claus, it's pretty obvious now that he's been connected with Christmas. And he has all those elements from Irving. Now we're turning into the Santa Claus that the whole world knows.
It's quite an amalgamation of a mixture going on there.
Yeah, and to think that it all happened, from New York City to Troy, all along there. And, this is called Dietrich Knickerbocker's History of New York. And of course, we have the Knickerbocker Mansion just over the river in Schaghticoke. And that is who Irving based his Dietrich Knickerbocker on, the Knickerbockers there. And he did actually come and visit over there. We don't know if he ever spent a Christmas there, but all of this really is the Hudson Valley from Troy to Schaghticoke to New York City, and this is where this all played out. And
then it ultimately spread throughout the country.
Yeah, it took a couple of cartoons by Thomas Nast during the Civil War period. It took the Coca-Cola Company adopting Santa Claus in its advertisements in the 1930s. And Santa Claus just took over Christmas and took over the world, quite frankly.
Well, we'll get back to your story. And Jillian, now this event I've noticed in the last couple of years talking to you, this is another one that's always popular. The Musicians of Malwick on Friday, December 11th, from 6 to 7. Tell us about them. I think a lot of people know who they are.
Yeah, they're a local group, I think. And what's great about them is they do a lot of period music. So a lot of 18th century, 19th century, I think even 17th century music, Christmas music. And so they always bring a pretty good crowd.
And then Saturday, December 12th, from noon to 3, the open house. That is just anyone can come down and walk
that's
around.
just your chance, to get in the house.
No
and poke
scheduled
around.
events. You can just walk around.
Please come explore. There will be a cookie walk. Sinterklaas will be there. It's just kind of more of a low-key event if you want to see the decorations.
You're going to be busy, Sinterklaas. And then on
Mrs. Sinterklaas agrees. She's always there.
And then on December 13th at 2 p.m., you're having a jazz concert, or a holiday music with a jazz group, Aria.
Yep, this is a quartet, and they do a lot of Americana, so it's a little different. Depending on what you're into, they do Broadway music, Americana. They do some jazz. They do really beautiful music in the parlors.
All the information. There's a lot of information on their webpage. It's tenbroeckmansion.org. Now you have here on December 17th and 18th a new event from 7 to 8, which sounds really pretty cool. It's called the Candlelit Tour. What is this all about?
So this is the first time we've done something like this, and this is great because even if you've been to the mansion before, you know the history of the mansion, or you toured the mansion, it's a chance to come back and learn something new. So this will be an evening tour through the mansion, and we've never offered evening tours before. It'll be a candlelit tour, and it's going to be a tour of the house and a history of the home and the people, but it's also going to be really focused on local Christmas history and the Hudson Valley, and a walk through that.
Well, familiar things always look different in candlelight. I think that'll be pretty cool. Now, will all the lights be off during the tour?
Yes, or turned down low. You'll be able to make your way around. You'll be bumping things, I promise.
All right. We have a couple more events, but before we get them, we'll go back to Sinterklaas's story. So you got this mixture of Santa Claus, Sinterklaas, St. Nicholas, and then how we know him today. I mean, how do you think it just became so mixed in with Christmas, which is a religious holiday? I mean,
it was a religious holiday. Well, of course, his feast day was a religious feast day as well, the December 6th, because they are so close together. Because Sinterklaas was known for his giving, I think it all came together when you had people celebrating Christmas and you had people celebrating St. Nicholas. Maybe we could be totally crass. Maybe the merchant said, listen, you're going to get 1 day off, but you're not going to get 2 days off. I think it just combined around here, the dominant was the English. So, kind of Christmas won out over St. Nicholas's feast day. In Holland, Sinterklaas or St. Nicholas's feast day won out. It's more important. But it came together here, and then they just mashed together all these different traditions and idea, whether they were from Irving's book or whether they were things they had seen their parents do. I mean, there are still people around Albany that do put out a wooden shoe with hay and carrots on my feast day. There's a lot of old traditions that just got, Queen Victoria brought over the Christmas tree.
Well, I was going to say the tree is from a whole nother,
from Germany.
It's a whole nother thing.
And the Yule log is from the Norse. Most of these ideas have something of light conquering dark.
Yeah.
The Yule log was put into the hearth on the longest night of the year. It burned through the night, and if it was still burning, on the next day, where the day would get longer, light would have conquered the dark. And so we adopted the Yule log. We tend not to do it anymore, but as a kid, I remember the Yule log and Christmas candles and this sort of thing. And behind most of them, it's conquering the solstice, the longest night of the year, and light conquering dark.
Well, the Candlelit Tour, that should be pretty cool.
It's perfect symbolism.
Yeah.
Now, Sinterklaas, when you do go to all these events every year, I was reading that you're always learning more all the time about what are some of the things that you've learned recently that maybe or you say whenever you're at these events, people come up to you all the time with little snitches of history.
All the time, people are coming up to me and saying, "Oh, I was in Amsterdam last year, when Sinterklaas arrived," and tell me stories. I'd have one gentleman who lives in Albany now, but he was originally from Austria. He would tell me stories that he learned when he was a child. He actually asked me
About Sinterklaas.
About Sinterklaas and Sinterklaas's miracles, or Saint Nicholas.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't Dutch, but it was Saint Nicholas, and he would be dressed like this as the bishop, Saint Nicholas, and asked me to visit his granddaughter when she was having a little party and come as St. Nicholas, bringing a bag of nuts, walnuts, which was common, and he gave me a lot of information about her, so when I came in, I could look at my book and I knew who her best friends were, and just absolutely astound her with my knowledge of her life. But I mean, one of the things I've been doing lately is studying some of the dark figures that accompanied St. Nicholas. I didn't know about Krampus or Pelznickel or Hans Muffer or any of the belts.
They've seemed to have been shunned aside a little bit.
Well, we turned them into the elves. I mean, think about American optimism.
Yeah.
In Europe, these are dark figures, like you say, a little bit like the devil. You can go on YouTube and see some of these celebrations where they look very devilish. And in America, we're terribly optimistic. We turn them into, the Keebler elves, happy elves, and they're good, and they're light too.
Maybe a little mischievous.
They may be a little bit, but they're not the dark figures they were in Europe, and it really says something about America that we would do that.
Yeah. Well,
to that tradition.
Well, I think one of the first drawings of Santa Claus as sort of a big jolly guy was the Coca-Cola, right? Was that, that way?
Oh, well, actually, it is, but the thing is, the illustrations in Irving's book,
he had him kind of jolly.
He was a Dutch burgher, a jolly Dutch burgher, and in the poem, Clement Moore's poem, remember his belly shakes like a bowl full of jelly.
That's right.
So when Nash drew him that way. He's got a good belly on him, and he's the older, big bearded Dutch burger, really. And so that's something we created here in America.
It's amazing how the humans do this with all the stories and customs.
It is, and almost every culture has around this time of year, or in south of the equator, in the middle of the summer, has stories about light conquering dark. And in Japan, they have a goddess who is in a cave, and she's the goddess of light that has to be coaxed out of the cave, and then reemerges, and then light. As I say, the Norse have the Yule log, which if it burns through the night, means that light is going to. And wherever you go to the you go to the Mayas and their temples, or you go to the Incas and the hitching post of the sun at Machu Picchu, which is tied, to the solstice. And once again, it's well, just think about it. We want life to conquer death. We want light to conquer dark, and we create myths and stories and images that are going to reassure us that even if it gets dark, even if the days grow short, we're going to reemerge. It's going to be better, and we are going to have a new planting season. The sun is going to come out and conquer things again.
Well, I think even the Egyptians, their whole mythology is based on the sun and all that.
Totally, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And if you stand in a tomb in Saqqara or in the Valley of the Kings, and you can be in the sarcophagus room of a pharaoh, and they will have the Egyptian Book of the Dead around, and you can see the progress of. It's literally making it through the night until the sun reemerges, and it's very powerful. You see it on a daily basis there, but almost every culture has a story, has a myth about light conquering dark.
Well, Sinterklaas, you've been doing your research. So we have two more events. The Children's Story Hour, which Sinterklaas will be at, Saturday, December 19th, 10:30 to noon. Jillian,
It's a free event. Bring your little ones. Sinterklaas will read stories. We will decorate gingerbread cookies. And it's just kind of a chance to come and have your photo taken with Sinterklaas.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Nice event.
And then the final event, December 19th, 2 to 4. Again, this is always a popular one. I know the last 2 years you mentioned them. These are the Madrigals.
So these are the Helderberg Madrigal singers. They come every year. We do coffee and desserts with them. Sometimes they'll switch rooms and they'll perform in each room, but it's an old favorite.
Okay, very good. So that's a lot of events starting on November 19th with the big gala in honor of Paul Grondel, ending on December 19th. There's a lot of information on tenbroeckmansion.org. Sinterklaas will be at many of these events. Did we leave anything out of your story, or did we leave too much out to even get into Sinterklaas? I don't know. There's a lot to tell.
There's so much,
Okay.
and you can always add on to it. You can see how they did things in Italy, how they did things, in another country, and it's never ending.
Never ending. Well, Sinterklaas, are you going to be anywhere else besides the Ten Broeck Mansion in our area where people may be able to see you?
I am going to be at the open house that the Guilderland Garden Club has every year.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be on the Sunday after the open house Saturday at Ten Broeck.
Okay, and very good. All right, well, thanks for coming for your yearly visit. I always look forward to it. We learn something every year from you, Sinterklaas, and you too, Jillian.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next time on Getting to Know You.